You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Did I just ask that? I did, didn't I?
Yeah.
All right, you ready?
Yes.
Hi, welcome to Comic Talk. I'm Josh.
And I'm Drew.
This is a new trade episode. Today we're going to be talking about Unbeatable Squirrel Girl.
She's so unbeatable.
Unbeatable. This is North and Henderson. This is a Marvel title. This just came out at the beginning of this month in trade form. And it's getting a lot of critical acclaim. It's supposed to be drawing in a lot of new readers and such. So we thought we'd give it a read and see what we thought.
Yeah. So a little bit on this creative team. Have you checked out anything by any of these people?
Not that I know of.
Reading this, I was convinced it was written by a woman. Because I had my girl read this too, and halfway through she looks up at me and she's like, if you need something to get like a teenage girl into comics, like this is the one to read.
Mm-hmm.
And then I read it, and yeah, it definitely has a very feminine feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it was written by a man. The artist is a woman.
Right. Yeah, which I think clearly comes through.
I don't want to get too much into the whole like realistic body standards thing, but I think it's pretty appropriate for the character.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it fits. She talks about her butt a lot, which is cute.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's just jump right at this. What did you think?
I thought it was pretty funny.
I did too.
I had a good time.
I got a lot of good chuckles out of it.
Yeah. There wasn't an overwhelming amount of squirrel humor in here. I thought it was very tasteful.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, we don't see a lot of like Brian K. Vaughan-ish pop culture references, but there is quite a bit of modern humor, I would say, like bitching about how her cell phone never works and, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think this could easily, if written not quite as well, have the hashtag fellow kids kind of feel to it, where it would feel like 30 or 40-year-olds writing as if they understand kids, but somehow I don't think it comes off that way. Mm-hmm. As you said, you had somebody read it. I actually had a 13-year-old girl read this and got her opinion on it, and she said it was pretty funny and cool. So, you know,
there we go.
It seems to work. I do have to say, when I started the first issue or so, I thought it was lukewarm.
Yeah.
I didn't love it at first. I thought, okay, I see what they're doing, and I understand who they're aiming for, and it had some funny stuff. The first issue was that the Craven issue?
Yeah, it's the Craven issue.
So it had some good stuff, some really funny moments. I liked the deal with throwing him in the air.
Mm-hmm.
Just throw him in the air and think about it and catch him, throw him in the air again. It's sort of outside of the box superheroing.
And Craven, I mean, I think he's only shown up that one time in that one Spider-Man comic back in the day, right? So I mean, you get a little bit of
I don't know.
Marvel nerd humor in there.
All in all, I did really like it. I really liked the art. And as I progressed through it, I liked it more and more. Not only do I think the writing actually got stronger as we went further, by the time we get to the Galactus issue, I felt like the writing was really on point. The Galactus issue the last two issues, right? I thought were really funny and clever.
See, 3 I felt like kind of dropped a little bit for me. It wasn't quite as funny. I mean, there were some interesting plot points and stuff, but it didn't quite have the same feel as the other 3. But I thought 4 knocked it out of the park.
4, right, is where it really gets good, where she actually is with Galactus and has that talk and all that, right? That was 4, wasn't it?
Yeah, about how Thanos is a tool.
Right, yeah.
But I would disagree. I think the first issue was fantastic. We get a lot of introductions to little idiosyncrasies she has and stuff, like the trading cards of all the villains and stuff that Deadpool made. Like, of course, Deadpool made trading cards for everybody. Yeah, and her being, I guess she's college age, so she's probably like just now 18. Like, yeah, it totally makes sense.
All in all, man, it was better than I thought it would be, to be honest. It was a lot funnier than I thought. I suspected that the humor was going to be, I wouldn't say go over my head so much as just not be aimed to me or not be something that I could relate to. Like, it would be unrelatable for someone my age. But for the most part, it wasn't. It was pretty universal in its humor. There's some stuff at the beginning of each issue, the recap is like a Twitter feed.
Yeah.
Which, if someone's not the kind of person who's ever spent any time on Twitter or social media, they might not get that. And there's things like that throughout that I guess if, there's certain people probably who just would have no frame of reference for this stuff if they're not into that kind of thing. But
I mean, even old people these days have Facebook. I mean, it's pretty analogous to Facebook as well. I mean, to me, it stands out as obviously Twitter, but I mean, it just has a very ambiguous social media of some form type feel to it.
But I guess what I'm getting at is there certain people who that wouldn't ring true for?
Sure.
Just wouldn't see the humor in it or have the frame of reference to understand why it's funny in the way that it's presented. And again, it could have easily have been a hashtag fellow kids moment of, hey, kids, look at me, I'm your age and know all the hip happening things. But
that Miley Cyrus, eh?
Right, but it really does ring true, I thought. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Just want to talk about the artwork?
Yeah, let's talk about the art.
Okay, what do you think about the artwork?
It's pretty good. I think it's fitting for what it is. It's I think because this is targeted at, I think, the younger female demographic overall, it makes sense that the paneling is relatively straightforward.
Yeah.
They're not
playing outside of the box.
Yeah, they're not playing around with the form. Or making it too confusing to follow. The
one thing that's not typical is these little comments they have.
Oh, the comments at the bottom were great. I'll tell you what, I made it through the first issue before I even noticed them.
Same, yeah.
And when I noticed them in the second issue, I went back immediately. I stopped third or fourth page into the second issue and went back to the front and read through them because they're that funny and they add that much to it.
I think going back in the third issue, I felt like they kind of didn't add as much as possible, and that was probably the one tipping point for me. And it is sort of a brave thing to introduce as something that you're doing every page, and I think eventually they kind of dropped it for that reason. It's like you can't think of witty one-liners for every page,
Yeah, but it's almost
a lot of times they did.
Yeah, well, it's almost like just a director's commentary track right there included, which gives you a really interesting modern meta context to everything, because you have the writer's view of everything as you're reading through it, and these little side jokes that the writer's making just directly to you.
Yeah,
and sometimes it's in the voice of the characters, and sometimes it's in the voice of the writer, and it's actually pretty impressive that you can pick up on what it is each time.
Right.
Because it just sort of follows from the last panel of each page. It usually just continues directly from that down in the little area below.
Not to deter anybody from reading this by making this comment, but it gave me a little bit of a Deadpool-esque kind of feel to it, just that fourth wall awareness of
me too. The whole thing, I think, did. Even the trading cards. And I think that's probably why Deadpool is on the trading cards, because it's so obviously a Deadpool-esque kind of thing. Might as well just make it Deadpool trading cards and call it a day, and just hang your hat on it. Basically, is what they did.
Back to the art. The actual art itself, I would say, is analogous to Kim Possible and those. I don't know if they're on ABC or Disney Channel, but there was a whole crop of cartoons that came out.
Fairly Odd Parents and
all that kind of look like this.
Ben 10, and also webcomics in general. There's a lot of webcomics that the younger female demographic, especially Tumblr and all that, it has that sort of feel as well.
So that being said, I do agree with you that it served the story pretty well. I mean, it's a good platform for visual humor and stuff because everything's kept sort of light. The colorist, I don't know if we had a separate colorist for this, but just absolutely had a heyday with all just the bright colors happening, and just every page looks cheerful. It's like the opposite Batman.
Right. Yeah, and They even make some jokes about being opposite Batman.
Yeah. She calls herself like the Dark Knight, and she's like, well, I got some browns in my costume.
Right. Yeah, and she's a rodent-based superhero.
Yeah.
You know, so definitely, she's almost the reverse Batman.
So in the back of this, we actually get a reprint of the first issue that Squirrel Girl appears in, which was written by Steve Ditko.
Ditko.
Mm-hmm. Murray did the script. Skeel did the colors, and Brad K. Joyce was the letterer.
It's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
I'm glad they put it in here.
Quite a bit different. And they actually reference how she looked. She's like, back when I was 14. And in this issue, she was 14.
Right.
You know, and there's a picture of her looking like this, which she looks a little bit weird, just in general, I would say, in the comic. But man, does she look creepy, like in this first appearance.
Yeah, she's super weird.
It's strange. Like,
Here she is. Where, right? Ugh, look at her. Yeah.
It's like a lost member of Kiss or something like that.
Man, this was funny.
Mm-hmm.
And it was well written, especially for its time.
It's weird to see Ditko do funny. I mean, this is the guy that invented the question, you know.
Yeah, Ditko's cool. You know, it's not surprising that this was good with it being Ditko. He's
I'm
done
not surprised
so
that
much
it's
cool
good,
stuff.
but I'm surprised that it's funny.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
I guess Blue Beetle, though. But yeah, overall, this is great. And it's amazing how, again, analogous the new series is to this. And I think that's probably partially why they put it in there. They make an absolute fool of, like, a huge villain in the Marvel Universe. She's playing like this sort of fangirl to Iron Man and trying to join the team and whatnot. I would say, I mean, I'm not sure. I don't think there are a lot of fans of the original Squirrel Girl comic out there. I think it's kind of notoriously a dollar bin find. But if you are one of those people, I think you'll be happily surprised with the new stuff.
Did you like the backup more than the trade itself?
No.
Okay, I didn't either. It was good, but I liked the new one more. I liked the bulk of this more than the backup. But like I said, I read this first, and I told you don't skip it because I've seen these sort of things in trades before, and sometimes I'll get to the old backup thing.
Yeah, it's whatever.
Like, I don't care about something that happened in 1974 or whatever, a different era of comics. But I read this one on a lark just because we were reviewing it. So that's why I told you, I'm like, you got to read it. It's actually pretty good.
91.
91. Yeah, an interesting time for comics, 91.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
So we should probably mention the art in this.
The art is super weird in this.
It's super weird.
It's got that everything's just on a white background thing most of the time.
Most of the time.
Which is also, I think, always looks super weird when it's every page all the time. It's cool when it's
here and there
to make a point or to highlight a character moment, but it's like a lot of this is just a white background or just Dragon Ball Z behind them, you know.
Yeah, in modern times it seems a bit lazy.
Right.
Imagine at the time when it came out, you know, I mean, all of this was hand-drawn and stuff, so, I mean, you had kind of allowances for that sort of stuff.
Right, and this is kind of a goofy story, too, which 91 was extreme, so these goofy one-off stories probably weren't a hot item.
Right. Despite the laziness, if it was laziness, I think it was kind of cool.
Yeah, it was neat.
Kind of gave me the vibe of something that came out prior to that. I'm a bit surprised, actually, that it came out as late as 91.
Yeah, me too. I was expecting mid-80s for it.
And it is nice that it's on the nice new paper, too.
Right.
Because we always complain about old trades having the old paper for no reason at all, from what I can tell.
And I imagine this wouldn't look quite as vibrantly odd either on the old paper. Like her eyes, for example, on this look really weird with that deep black raccoon thing that's going on there. But on old paper, that would have been a much less intense black. It probably wouldn't have come through looking quite so nutty. And she's clearly
nutty.
She's yeah. She's clearly supposed to look ridiculous, but I don't think it would have been quite as bad on the old paper. So there's something to be said there, I suppose.
Still creeps me out that Wolverine had sex with her. What?
He's a weird dude.
I mean, even in this one, she was like 14.
He has issues.
Apparently, man.
Yeah.
He's too many issues.
Yeah. Well, that's true. Yeah. He's got Deadpool syndrome is what he has.
Yeah.
Or does Deadpool have Wolverine syndrome?
No, Deadpool, or Wolverine wants to be Deadpool, obviously.
Okay, that's clearly it. So our final recommendation is that this probably is a read. This is something most people would probably like to check out. Unless you just, if you straight up don't like humorous stuff or you don't like anything regarding
remotely
like teenage
childish
girls, you know, if you're the kind of person who can watch cartoons and find enjoyment in them, you'll like this. This is good. Mm-hmm. And if you're a teenage girl, definitely get this.
I would say maybe if you're an adult and you still watch Adventure Time and laugh, you're probably going to like this. Mm-hmm. It's that same sort of, it's for a younger audience, but it's still funny.
Right. And it also parodies the Marvel universe a little. Less the universe, but more just comic tropes. So if you like, you know, making jokes about comic tropes and things like that, you might like it as well. In the same way that people who like Deadpool, or even the recent Ant-Man trade we did, if you like comedic stuff that kind of plays around with what it means to be a superhero, you might like this as well. Yeah, it's really well written, and the art's pretty neat. And lastly, coming up here in the next month, not this next Monday, but the following Mondays after that, as the new shows start coming back, we're talking about The Flash, The Arrow, and Gotham coming up here first. We're going to go back and look at some trades that we think you guys should take a look at, or that we've seen recommended for people that are into these characters to help you get into that world or maybe learn a little bit more about those characters. So if you love those shows and maybe you haven't read some stuff for The Flash or Green Arrow or Gotham in general, check back with us in the weeks to follow. Go ahead and subscribe below, and you'll see those come out on your feed each week. And that should be pretty cool. We're going to dig into that pretty well. We're going to talk about some stuff like Gotham Central. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about some Flash trades in the new 52. Is that right?
Yeah, we got some new 52, and then we got some of the Wade Flash, too. Mm-hmm. Some Green Arrow that was recommended by Stephen Amell himself.
Right.
That's pretty analogous to the upcoming season, apparently. I think we're also doing some Jeff Lemire Green Arrow, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, so we're going to dig in a nice multitude of things, smorgasbord of episodes here to go right along with the show. So, again, subscribe so you don't miss that stuff. I'll use this hand because it's where you can see it. And also like down below and give us comments and all that. And also remember, the new Marvel stuff's coming up. We still want to know what you think we should read. That'll do. Bye-bye now. Let's point. Point. Fire. That's fire? Like this?
Yeah.